morning where Skylar also talked about a practical example. And one of the experiences he talked about was payments. Payments, why you buy, not build, because it exists already. Well, the next speaker, Jarno Marchetto, has spent a while, over a decade, in payments innovation, working with MasterCard, Visa, Google, Apple, Garmin, Fitbit, you name it, to bring experience now to Cornèr and Cornèrcard.
Thanks a lot. Good. Thanks for the introduction, and I'm very glad to be here with you today in Lausanne. My name is Jarno Marchetto. I'm responsible for innovation and business solutions at Cornèrcard. And just briefly, Cornèrcard is the payment card division of Cornèr Bank. So we issue payment cards, credit and prepaid cards in Switzerland and in Europe. And Cornèr Bank, very probably you know, we are based in Lugano. We are very experienced in payments. We've been a Visa International founding members, and back in 1975, we issued the first payment card in Switzerland. So even if I have gray hairs, I was not working for Cornèr Bank at the time, believe me, just to be clear, but my colleagues managed to do so, so I think we can say really we have a good experience on that. So what I'm going to talk to you about today, let's say 3 main topics. One, which are the key trends in payment tech? And why tech? Why technology? Because actually technology is what drives innovation forward in payments. And not only actually in payments, we've seen in several other industries, right? Then we'll focus just briefly on privacy and the privacy-related aspects or impacts due to these technology developments, and also to law and regulation we have in Switzerland and in Europe. And finally, we'll look, again, shortly, briefly, about the critical factors. Let's start with the technology. So in my opinion, there are 5 main trends, which are very probably, if I link to the other presentation we have seen until now, not only specific to the payment industry, but some of them are maybe more specific. The first one are the developments on hardware and cryptography. Second one is tokenization, a very specific technology to the payment or banking industry. Third one, very common one, artificial intelligence, machine learning. The fourth one, let's say, using different technology in different industries, but specifically in banking, biometrics or biometric technologies. And finally, very, very common too, is the cloud. Let's start with the hardware and cryptography. What we can say here. So with the time, we had increasingly complex, but also computational capable hardware. So if you think we started enabling payments with very simple cards, with no intelligence on that, just data, right? And with the time, these cards started embedding some computing capabilities, microchips, right? And then cards evolved to other supports, like smartwatches, smartphones, laptops, PCs. I can already tell you what is the next frontier. The next frontier is cars. Why cars? Because actually we are going to putting payment credentials also on cars so that you can buy on the fly, for example, thinking about electric vehicles, you can buy on the fly more power or more battery life. It's not a dream, it's really something that manufacturers are working right now, and we are going to support them in this transition, right? And the second point is cryptographic algorithms, or in general, cryptography software. Why that? Because as you know, I mean, not only in payments or banking, but in general, cryptography is what, let's say, put data at safe, what makes everything secure, right, on the internet, for example. And what we did here was pretty simple, right? We kept updating and updating cryptographic algorithms, right? So that we have been always adapting these algorithms to the possible threat and attacks. You have seen we have a very specialties there. We have a lot of companies that are working on that. But in general, it was like, really, let's update the algorithms. And I can tell you already the industry is ready to go to the next jump, which is basically quantum-resistant cryptography. You know that there was a discussion a couple of years ago, what happens when quantum computing are coming to the world, that really also, let's say, criminals can use them to threat the internet in general, the financial industry, right? And I can tell you, we already have algorithms ready there. We just will update what we are using here. Tokenization, what does it mean in really very simple words? We take some sensitive data, we replace this data with an alter ego, something which is not sensitive anymore, not valuable, right? And in this way, we protect the information itself. It is pretty used in our industry. We started using that in order to, let's say, mask the long number that you find on your card. And in this way, we were able, let's say, to share this number, because it's not this number anymore, it's an alter ego, with third parties. For example, with, as it was mentioned before, with smartphone manufacturers, Apple, Samsung, Google, or even on online merchants, right? What we do today is we never share your card number with these players. We just give them an alter ego to put on their databases, right? What is important here is this technology has been compatible with existing infrastructure, so that we didn't have to adapt what was very solid and strong and developed with the here. And again, what is also important here to highlight is that tokens are secure, and we can put them on several possible supports. I talked before about hardware developments, so from cars to smartphones to smartwatches and even cars. So this is the basis, hardware basis for this kind of facility. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. I don't want to talk too long here because, I mean, we have heard a lot about that, but in general, what I can say is that machine learning in particular is used more and more in the financial industry, and in particular also in payments. And not only for, let's say, customer segmentation or marketing, but in particular for, let's say, correlated, core functionalities like fraud prevention, like compliance, and so on. As you know very well, this works with large quantity of data. What does it mean? That as an industry, we started collecting more and more data, which are not really directly related to payments, but are more contextual, right? And maybe another information I want to share from my experience is we heard also before, so it's not easy to go from theory or from out-of-the-box tools to something which is really working in production. And not only because of the technology, which is complex, but also because we have to, let's say, consider several aspects like data protection, privacy, and also ethics, even be sure not to discriminate maybe some customer segment because of these technologies. Biometrics, something that you know very well from your smartphones, right? So Touch ID or fingerprints, right? And obviously this technology is already used in the banking industry, in the financial industry. Think about accessing your online banking or enabling your payments and so on. But on the other hand, there are already good developments on an additional layer, let's say, of security, of privacy, which is behavioral biometrics. What we are doing here is basically we add an additional layer of security, as I mentioned, and we track not only, let's say, your biometric threads, but we look really at, for example, how you enter numbers or words at your keyboards, or how you move your mouse on your screen when you are doing some payments online, or how you handle your smartphone or tablets when you buy online. What is important to say here is really something that I want to anticipate. These data are never shared with other systems or players in clear. So these data are always anonymized, encoded, and obviously encrypted before we share them, so that we can use the value of the data to produce score, to get more accuracy of our systems, but the data is always protected, and obviously also your privacy. We never give a link or possible link to give back this information to your person. And again, in biometrics, it's even more important because the sensitive information is directly related to you as a person, as an individual. And finally, we have the cloud as an architecture, specific architecture for software and hardware. And as you probably know, the banking sector was at the beginning a little bit reluctant about using that. Okay, what are we doing here? We are putting customer data somewhere and we don't have any control on that. As you heard before, and you very probably know, this is not the fact. So data in the cloud are very well protected, even sometimes more than on data center or banking data center. And in particular, encryption typically is what ensures here also data protection and privacy. So data are always encrypted when you transfer them and where they are stored at rest, right? But what is good here in cloud for our industry is really the scalability. So the cloud gives you more power, more storage capabilities. And this technology enables typically some use cases like I was explaining before, biometrics advances, right? Or artificial intelligence and machine learning. So now that we have looked at the technology developments a little bit more in detail, let's talk about the privacy impacts. Okay, in general, I can tell you, the introduction of these technologies did not jeopardize, in general, data security or privacy. Absolutely not. On the contrary, some technologies have been really explicitly introduced to protect privacy. Think about tokenization. Again, I swap some sensitive data with an alter ego which doesn't have any value per se, right? And in addition, what I was anticipating before, those kind of data are always masked, encrypted, encoded, in some time anonymized, so that the clear data are never shared. You never have a link back to the original information. In addition to that, it's not only technology that protects us for data and privacy, but it's also the legal framework. I'm pretty proud to say that in Switzerland and in Europe, we have a very flexible legal framework, but on the other hand, laws and regulation are pretty heavy and hard what the privacy is concerned, for example. Think about the banking secrecy first, so this is something that regulates our industry first, right? But also the FINMA, the job that FINMA does here, you heard before, the big work that FINMA experts are doing here. And then very specific laws like the Federal Act on Data Protection, the Data Protection Ordinance, which are obviously valid for Switzerland. And if you go a little bit broader in Europe and worldwide, you have things like GDPR, PSD2, strong customer authentication, and even industry standard like PCI that really make sure that as a player, you have to have the technology, but you also have to keep up to date with data protection and privacy. So it's a fact that the debate about data protection, privacy in our world, in the banking industry in general, is always open and pretty strong debated sometimes. Like we have areas where there are a lot of discussion, and also because things are evolving, strongly evolving. Things about how we minimize the data we collect, right? Or how we handle the very sensitive data, like, for example, when you purchase something online, like a drug, medication, and basically you can tell me, okay, the bank knows that I have maybe some medical issues, right? And also very typical things which are not, let's say, specific of our industry, like the roles of the controller and processor, or, for example, identification and authentication systems, which is obviously the core of data security and privacy in banking, but not only. But in general, what I would like to highlight here is that the combination of the two, so the technology and law framework, legal framework, is working pretty well. Again, technology is protecting information, is protecting data, is protecting privacy, right? And the laws are constantly up to date, are constantly evolved so that the players are forced, in any case, to make sure that the data are correctly protected. And another thing maybe that we can add here is that sensitive data typically remains with the user. So are stored on the user device and are in full control of the user. User decides, okay, what I want to do with my data. Do I want to share them with some parties? If yes, which are these parties, right? And typically these data are not stored in any case. You always have some alter egos or anonymized data that goes through other systems and other players. And so before I, let's say, close this presentation, because this is the next point and the core point, you would say, okay, thanks, Jarno, so you're telling me I can sleep very well, very relaxed, technology, laws will protect us forever. There are no issues. No, actually, there is one, and we've seen also in the previous presentation, the critical factor is the human factor, actually. So we can do all this work of updating technology, updating laws and so on. But in the end, the humans, the people are maybe here the critical factor. Because think about, really, there are people that exchange very sensitive information, financial information through insecure channel. People are asking their relationship manager, please send me the banking statement of WhatsApp, okay? Or please send me, I don't know, the list of my full investment and assets on my Gmail account. Okay, but actually, what are you doing here, right? And even worse, some people are obsessed, okay, banks, what do banks do with my data? So what they do with that, right? And then they post their pictures with family, friends, relatives about location, purchases, assets they own, without any shame. I mean, and you have this information, I can tell you right now. So we have very professionals that can protect the information. We've seen specialized companies. We've seen laws that forces us to do so. But in the end, what hackers and criminals do today is they just go on the web, on the social media, and they harvest a lot of information without any issue. And they know very well the victims, what they are doing, who do they know, and what, for example, they own and they can steal, right? So think about that. We can protect everything, but in the end, if people share this information and put it in very clear way and clear open source, let's say, way on the web, that's the issue. That's all from my side, and I thank you so much for the attention, and I'm gladly available for further discussion later.